Today, on International Women's Day, it was reported that around 2,000 women gathered in the Pakistani city of Lahore, despite efforts by authorities to stop them. They were among women across the world who used this day to come together to celebrate and rally for equal treatment, representation and an end to violence against women and girls. Women, life, freedom. The rallying cry of a movement born of outrage at the death of Mahsa Amini last September. The Iranian regime was confronted by waves of protest on the streets, with images of women defiantly removing their headscarves, even burning them, while standing up to physical attempts to silence them. The numbers of protesters may have dwindled since, but outrage lives on, especially when fueled by scenes like this. Schoolgirls struggling for breath, victims of suspected gas poisonings at schools across the country, giving voice to their angry families. Women are at the heart of Iran's struggle. Elsewhere in the world, women's rights are being violated. The UN stated today that 20 years of progress have been erased since the Taliban took over again in Afghanistan. Excluded from public life, civil liberties reduced, dress codes imposed, withering access to work and education. The harmful annihilation of women's rights, it calls it. This time last year, Amnesty International expressed alarm at the dramatic deterioration in respect for women's rights and gender equality, calling for action to reverse this erosion. As well as Afghanistan, it highlighted gender-based violence in Ethiopia. It also has its eye on Turkey. 2 years ago, President Erdogan pulled the country out of an international treaty opposing violence against women, sparking protests. For years, Istanbul's International Women's Day march has been banned. Today, Pakistan did see rallies, with thousands of women taking to the streets. International Women's Day is one of celebration, but it's also a call to action. In too many parts of the world, such action is simply not allowed. But women do it anyway. Let's talk to campaigner Shiva Mahbobi from Iran, former judge Marcia Babakahil from Afghanistan, and trainee G Yamama Badawi from Syria. Welcome all of you. Let me ask each of you individually. Shiva, who are you thinking about today?
I'm thinking about thousands of women in Iran who in the past 44 years fought against legalized, systematic misogyny imposed by the Islamic regime and against hijab as a symbol of that oppression. And particularly, I'm thinking about thousands of women since the revolution started after murdering Gina Mahsa Amini, who've been on the street even today shouting women, life, freedom, and thousands of school children who've been actually punished for their freedom of expression, and thousands of them been poisoned by chemical attack. So I'm thinking on all these brave women that despite almost half a century of suppression, they're still loud and clear, they're leading the revolution.
Yamama, who are you thinking about today?
So I can't really think about Women's Day without remembering men behind the women. So I'm thinking about my mother, who never managed to continue her education back in Syria because she was keen to get us educated and to continue our education. But also I'm thinking about, but she continued her education when she moved to Sweden. So she's working and studying and she's such a role model to me. However, I'm also thinking about my father who on the day he was bankrupt back in Syria, he came back home with books for us when we were young children. And I'm thinking about my brothers, my husband, and all the men around me. So I can't really think about women without men supporting them.
Understood. Let me bring in Marcia. What about yourself, Marcia? Who are you thinking about?
I'm thinking about how we lost all our achievement during the night.
You mean women and girls in Afghanistan?
Women and girls in Afghanistan. How we lost all our hope in Afghanistan. We worked very hard to found this freedom, and we lost this freedom just during the night. I'm thinking about all hopeless women in Afghanistan, they have no day and no night and no happiness.
We will talk about how we help those women in a moment. What, reading all of your stories and your background, what you all have in common, apart from the obvious, is your parents, in each of your cases, were really instrumental in bringing you up so that you spoke out and in encouraging you to pursue your ambitions. Is that fair, your mama?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think I was privileged to have parents who were really keen to get us educated and to get us, empower us to just speak up and tell the truth, whatever the situation is.
Shiva, what about you?
Well, yes, I grew up in a family that I never felt like I'm different than my brother, despite the law and the power. But at the same time, I think I grew up in a time that I felt like, as a woman, I must have a voice. I don't have a choice other than that. And that's why I ended up being in prison in a teenage time when I was. So I guess that voice was encouraged by my family in general, and also by the society as people. So that helped me actually to feel like, as a woman, I am able to fight for my right, and I'm able to fight for the freedom of the society, which is quite empowering.
And just in a few sentences, tell our audience about you being detained and what was behind that.
So when I was, like, my generation, like this generation, fought against the Islamic regime. So I was 12 in a demonstration demanding our school to be open when I was arrested for 6 days. And then I went to student movement, and I was arrested in the age of 16 for more than 3 years, being tortured and all that. And then when I got out of prison, basically they wanted to arrest me again because I continued my activity. But then I left Iran in 90s.
So when you see this happening to women and girls now,
I identify
decades
with
later,
them, absolutely. I think when you see Iran, it's amazing. Almost 3 generations from just 44 years ago, right on this day, 8th of March, 1979, women went on the street when they announced hijab law, and they said, we want our right, we're not going to let you win. 44 years ago, up to this day, just today, women are still on the street. 3 generations, they're saying that we didn't let you to take our right. So I guess I'm proud that I'm part of that generation of women who fight for women's life freedom.
Marcia, how do you, in the position that you have now, help the women and girls, and the young adults who want education in Afghanistan? What can you do?
Not just me, all around in the UK, all around the world, women activists, Afghan women activists, they all came together, and they managed to have some online classes for girls in Afghanistan.
Is that dangerous for them?
It is dangerous, but we have to, because the way we can help them, this is our possibility. This is our support to our women in Afghanistan. If we keep silent, I think we cannot forgive ourselves. Understood. To do something for them.
And again, in a few sentences, Marcia, and I wish we had hours to talk about your story as well. What happened in your case? You were a judge in Afghanistan.
Yes, I was a judge in Afghanistan in the 90s. During that time, was 22 female judges around my country.
Sorry, there were 22, were there?
Yeah, all the country. Yeah. So when I became a judge, I had no idea about injustice and inequality things in the court. I was very young and very naive. When I started working as a judge at the family court, I saw the lack of production and justice for women in Afghanistan at the court. Always the law was more supportive to man, but very aggressive to women. I think that time I realized I should stand for them, but as a judge, you are tied by the law. You cannot do anything. So I start to establish an organization to support women, That time I was maybe about 29 years old, and so I started to empower women in my country.
Did it work?
That was also his work, of course, because I had a very good family support and friends. But also I paid the high price because of that. My job was not popular with the Taliban. When they came to to Palakhumri, they came to my house, so they tried to find me and shoot me. That was, that was not an easy job, easy fight.
Of course.
Yeah.
Thank you, all of you, so much for talking to our audience tonight on this International Women's Day /night. We really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.